Now we're back in the saddle and on the road with the men who have the staying power on one of cycling's great stage races.
Gosh, it's on. Hello. Hello.
Deuxième au championnat du monde du contre-la-montre.
3, 2, 1, go!
Oh. Well, we're looking at the time trial here on your screen. Rick Verbrugge, who unfortunately has not had a very happy tour. He started off at the top of the pile there with that wonderful time trial in Geneva, where the conditions were nice and dry, and subsequently, of course, we've had the snow up in the mountains, which made life very miserable indeed for all the competitors. So Rick, they're not too happy with the circumstances. One would have hoped, yes sir, he'd have hoped, I suppose, that as far as Belgium was concerned, he would be used to the nasty weather and might have got a better placing. Not to be. We're running down now right alongside the Lake Le Mans on the right-hand side of the course. You can probably see that too from your position, but I'm sorry about the problems we've had coming on air to you. There's something seems to have gone tremendously wrong with the headphone system here, and the sound is diabolical. Good as what's happening, what you're hearing out there at the moment, but certainly it's not working as it should do, says he. Well, I don't like to blame the gremlins, but they've got at us. We fortunately, in all the weather conditions, only had problems getting pictures from the motorcycles, but it seems that the damp today has got into the commentary booths as well. Sorry about that. And here we're going back out now to pick up Alex Zuller, riding for Team Coast. Well, this man, a previous world time trial champion, will probably revel in today's stage, because it's what, 18 and a bit kilometres for the stage today, and perhaps a bit on the short side as far as he's concerned. 18.3 kilometres, that's just on 11 miles. Lausanne, we're down off the old town of Lausanne, down by Lac Le Mans on this course. A bit of a climb back up into the town. The flatter bit is running very close to the edge of the lake, and then we go back up into the town for the riders to finish the stage day. As always in time trials, the last man to go will be the leader on the general classification. And if you've been down a pothole or off on holiday somewhere and have lost track of what's been happening so far, it is Daryl Frijo who is the leader on the general classification overall with his best time. And in fact, he's got a little bit of a beautiful breathing space at the moment on the overall classification, which may be enough to see him through at the end of it, because he's got a 20-second lead over Perez and 21-second over Noé on the general classification. I'll back out again with Alex Zuller on the course. This is where they you can see by the barriers in the centre that they go up one side and come back down the other as well. So a bit like out and home time trialling that a lot of British followers of the sport this afternoon who are born and bred on time trialling will know what it's like to be on an out and home course. And one thing you can do then is you can do a check on the rider on the other side of the road, and your minute man or your 5-minute man or a 10-minute man, whoever it might be you're having a go at, you can usually pick that up in a time trial by looking at the position when he crossed in, look at your watch, and then when you come back the other way, it'll give you a bit of a general indication. Well, as far as these riders are concerned, the professionals, they get the information coming out from the director sportif in the following car. Around the course, they will position helpers who will be doing the timing of the men that matter on the general classification, and they'll be able to then feed back the information to the riders. There's two sorts of information they want, by the way. One is a doubly check on the riders who may be moving up on the classification, and it could also be a useful check to see who is leading and who is likely to win the time trial, because often you don't always get the man who's got the leader's jersey on coming out at the end of it all wearing the leader's jersey and setting the fastest time. But we'll have to wait and see if that can happen today. Frigo has been surprising a lot of us in the competition so far, as we're now going to man who will really today, I suppose, catch a few people napping with his time trial. A bit short then for Hunchar, and he's next world time trial champion, and today ought to be his day, but probably a bit short, 18 kilometres. Likewise for Zuller. And what a day we had yesterday. If you didn't see the course, by the way, the snow was down there, and this man Zuller took advantage of the conditions and he took off and got the victory yesterday. But for most of the riders here, I think they're not going to go absolutely bananas out all the way around, because although the course has got these climbs and twists and turns in it, there's a lot of the white marks here on the road where the riders can find themselves in trouble if they lay the bike over too far. They've been training around the course since moving on from the finish yesterday, but of course the trouble is you can't always get it going full bore round the course when there's traffic on it too as well, and though the road's been closed for some time now, they haven't been able to give it all the welly they'd like to do. Back then with Rick Verbrugge on his light speed bicycle, and it's a titanium frame, ovalized titanium frame, and the Americans coming in for the first time with their titanium bicycles for the team here, for the Lotto team. Those be on GT bikes, if memory serves me correct, last year. And light speed, look at the size of those pipes. It looks like he's riding something that they've scrounged off the scaffolding and flattened it and welded it together. But it is extremely light. Don't be misled by the size of the pipes. That's one thing about titanium, is that if you have titanium of normal size tubing, it can have a little bit of whip to it, whereas by getting the ovalized tubing, then they're building the strength into it as well. So here he is. I said to you earlier on, it goes dragging up towards the finish, rather nasty drag, and you've got to be exactly right on your attempts to do well in this by just leaving something in the bank towards the end, because it does go up towards the end, and if you hadn't let just a little bit there, then you can find yourselves in trouble. Well, Verbrugge on the general classification, let me tell you about the position he is over on general classification, lying 23rd now. Sorry, that was yesterday. He was 23rd yesterday. That's what did the damage. Yesterday he dropped out of contention when he finished down there in 23rd spot, and Verbrugge now then has dropped to 18th overall, 1 minute and 37 seconds down. And you can see how difficult it is here too. These time trial bikes, very much with the triathlon bars, are manufactured and designed for speed on good conditions. But when it comes to climbing like this, you've got to get down there in what would be normally the hooks on a normal bicycle. And so he's now having to do what he can up there. And usually with time trial bikes too, they have a single ring on the outside with an enormous set of gears, almost straight through block at the back. And you see what saddle he's got, by the way, just as he's now easing himself up. They use a lot of carbon fibre saddles now, which are just like cheese cutters. They rather are a bit, you know, watery-eyed type stuff, because the saddle is very, very narrow at the peak and only a width of about 3.5, 4 inches at the back. There it is. Extremely light indeed, not much comfort there, but when you're racing round on a course like this one, then you're not in for comfort. You go through the pain and do the best time you can. Back out then with Alex Zuller. Zuller, yesterday, having won that race, moved up a little bit on general classification, but he'd lost too much time a couple of days ago it was, when Alex just didn't get with the break when the whole field split, and he's 1 minute and 11 seconds down on general classification in 13th spot, unlucky for some. But he could be in with a victory today, and that's the sort of man that he is. Caught the selector's eye yesterday for the Tour de France, a bit too late by the way, because his team had not been selected for the Tour. The announcement on May the 2nd giving those wildcard positions to Psycho, Bonjour, Crédit Agricole, La France and AG2R Prévoyance. So 4 of the 5 wildcards selected for the Tour de France are French teams. Already selected, Coffert is here, David Moncuti. David Miller, well, he was... his comment yesterday, it was a day from hell, was David's comment yesterday, a day from hell, and he was very miserable indeed by the conditions yesterday. But it looks like it's going to change here. Moncudia's moving up here into 6th spot. So I think we're going to take a short break then, covering then all the top men coming in towards the back end of the race. But David starting out this morning way off the pace. He'd lost about 2.5 minutes, so he was down in 45th spot this morning. Well, Rick Rugger probably enjoying the cobbles, but the climb is a bit steep for everybody here. We're now picking up this final stage of the Tour of Romandie for you, 18.3 kilometres, 11 miles of action. And they've swept up from the Lac Le Mans further down, where they've gone along by the museum, which is the Olympic Museum. We may get a chance for our cameras to pick up the Olympic Museum for you. And if you remember our coverage of the Tour de France a couple of years ago, we're in the area where Eric Decker managed to get a success on that particular day, which brought him 3 victories in the Tour de France on that particular year, and that's why they call him Triple Decker. Eric, we hope, will come back into action before long. He broke a femur in the Milan-San Remo early on this year, and so it's unfortunate then for Eric that he wasn't able to race during this season. And there we are, the rider now, Moose, going round there. The best time, by the way, as we're now getting our act together here, sorry about it, they've had all sorts of technical problems, and David Miller leading at the moment 25 minutes and 40 seconds. I don't know if you've actually caught up with that one yet. There's been, I say, a few gremlins out here. David Miller then leading 25 minutes and 40 seconds, and despite the fact that he was saying very miserable after yesterday, and it was a day from hell, he's now put in a cracking time over what has been a very difficult course indeed. So we're going to see if that one will be toppled towards the end. David was riding very confidently. I don't know if you've been able to see the early part of our coverage, but he did go away, not yesterday, the day before, and we've had him in a breakaway, a group of riders too, and he was looking like he was going well, but just towards the back end, this is the day that Frigo took over the race lead, that he was in a breakaway of about 6 or 7 riders, and they never got more than 15 seconds, but he was a bit upset, David, because they weren't working well together, which is not surprising because they got 2 of the Tacconi Sport riders in that breakaway group. They've done a marvellous job that particular day, setting the situation for what eventually turned out to be a stage victory by Frigo, who romped away up the climb. So that was on the 108 mile, 172 kilometre stage 2 in the race, when David went away with Rotterman and Mazzoloni from the Tacconi Sport team. The group was also there from Rabobank, and Perron was there too, Gonzalez and Zubaida from the Calme team. David was that group of riders. They never really got much more than a dozen seconds ahead, and then finally they got caught then toward the back end as they went to finish up the top of the climb, the Châtel sur Mont-Sabine. It was only just 5 kilometres from the end that Frigo closed them down and started to put a bit of life in the action, and went on to take the leader's jersey on that day. And then after the next day, David just took it easy on the climbs we had that particular day, just took it easy all the way through, came in about 2 minutes 40 seconds down. Again yesterday, finished, David, looking down the list here where he finished yesterday for you, He was 41st yesterday, 2 minutes 23 seconds down again, so he's just been making sure he had something left in reserve for today, and he's now done that very good. By the way, coming down here, this is where we started the Tour de France, just very close to here, that stage after Decker got it. On the left-hand side, there's a very nice marina, lots of nice boats there, smart boats indeed, and some quaysides where the nice little VIP village in the morning was there. Lovely weather conditions, sunny conditions it was too. And this part of the world then was, well, there's lots of holiday hotels, and at that time of the year, the Tour de France absolutely completely filled, not only with the Tour de France, but also just further on down there was the Montreux Jazz Festival going on. So this is a place which has massive amount of hotel, but at times when you get things like the Montreux Festival, then things can change. And can the lead change now? Miller then 25.40 leading, and Verbrugge 25.28 coming up here trying to beat David Miller's time. No, doesn't look like he's going to do it, giving it all he's got. And that will be saying some consolation too for David yet again, because Verbrugge, extremely good time trials, winner last year of the Flèche Wallonne, also took over the leader's jersey in the Giro d'Italia, and so Leipheimer 25.55, he looks like he might get past that one. Yes, he's gone past that one, and in fact he's going to be just in the top 10 now in 6 pot 26.04. Well, not a very happy chappy, I don't think, with the race so far this time. And back out then with the rider from Euskaltel. I don't think he'll be too bothered about the climb coming ahead, these little specialist climbers. And this was the man who went in that leading breakaway group on that stage 2 I mentioned too, when 2 of the lads from Euskaltel went off there as well to try and stir things up. And that was the one that looked like it could be a useful break for Dave. Didn't quite turn out that way. Just quickly check for you his position on the general classification. One minute 12 seconds down on the leader on the overall classification. Now, Cadel Evans. I'm not putting the little visor on the front, but I'm not surprised then with spitting down with rain here. Now, what a great ride he did yesterday, Cadel Evans. He finished up there in 6 pot yesterday, and that was just in the same group that Alex Zuller came through. And he has, to my money, been, I'll say, man of the match. Certainly a great revelation. And overall classification, he's now 4th at the moment, and he's 29 seconds down on Frigo. But as he goes away here, the Aussie World Cup mountain bike winner on various stages of the World Cup, stayed mountain bikes. He did a bit of stagiaire riding with Seiko last year. That's the year before, the year just gone in front of us now, in the year 2000, as Zuller now starts going in front of it. Cadel Evans, then, interesting, if we look at the other rider who'll next to go in 2 minutes will be Andrea No from the Mappe team. The difference between those two is only 8 seconds, and then Perez is just 9 seconds ahead. So we've got 3 riders very closely packed together, Noe, Evans and Perez, and then just another 3 seconds behind Evans is Sastre, and then back there is Mazzoloni. He's just about 9 seconds. You can hear the Swiss crowd going absolutely bananas here for Alex Zuller. What a brilliant time trials he's been over the years, and they said at 14.9 kilometers round, and he's now there lying first at 18 minutes and 25 seconds. So he's doing a cracking ride at the moment, is Alex Zuller, and no wonder the locals are getting very keen to give him a bit of support. Back down on that run-in, this is where we had the finishing straight not far from down here on that Tour de France stage when Eric Decker came down this road and got that victory. And I seem to remember that Armstrong had also gone with him and was not far off on that particular stage. There you can see on the left hand side is the Lac Le Mans, and up on the right hand side is the Olympic Museum. Amazing place. If you do get a chance when you come here, it's worth going to the Olympic Museum. It's on several different levels, and it's built into the hillside, the museum, so that when they were building this museum, they didn't have to destroy many of the trees and the local foliage. Very nicely done display indeed. Then, next man to go, and this is the rider Noe from Mapei. Yeah, this is the easy bit now. Starting very close to the Olympic Stadium. And back out then. Well, we have, it says Sergio Honcho, I think we're picking up there. Yes, it is. Sergio Honcho is the teammate of the Fassa Bertolo team. And Honcho, coming through on the overall classification, is lying 10th at the moment. 1 minute and 1 second down. One would normally expect Honchard to move up a little bit. There, I told you about the marina on the left-hand side. Rather nice hotel, this one here with the red to it. And just back from here, even further back, is the hotel I stayed at on the Tour de France before. And in fact, we had to relocate because there'd been a problem with the bookings, and no problems this time around, but there was problems on that particular occasion when the hotel was out on the route that the Tour de France took. And one thing you can't do, even if you've got all the passes, is come back down the route because the roads are totally closed. And so I said, no, I'm going to find another hotel, and ended up at a rather expensive one just further back down there. I won't say the most expensive one in Lausanne, but certainly it was not far from the UCI headquarters and also the headquarters Olympic movement, so that was cost a few bob that time. Right, back out with Santiago Perez on the Kelme Costa Blanca team. I mentioned it yesterday, but I know some of you haven't always caught up with things. They seem to be a bit short of a bob or two at the moment, the Kelme team, and rumours are they haven't been had their salaries for the last couple of months, but we'll have to wait for proof of that. No, I suppose the check is in the post, sir. Well, because with these chaps, they're travelling all the way across the world, they don't have much time to check their post. Right, he was going extremely well, this young lad, again on the climb yesterday. He was the chap who looked like he was going to win the stage until finally got caught by Zula's lot. But a useful ride indeed for Perez. He's not Perez, by the way, the rider from the Pannoria team, who's just been riding extremely well in one of the stage races, which escapes my brain, in Italy, where the lad won a stage there. And he is the chap who we saw in the Tour of Italy last year. The other Perez, not this one that we just saw start down the road. A crash into the Armco barriers and knock his front teeth out. And well, he's got himself a new set of teeth now, young Perez. The other Perez from Mexico has just been doing well just something about a week ago. So, situation on your screen, you can see here still that Miller is in the lead. In fact, you can't quite see it there. We're watching other riders here further back down as we've now got most of the top riders underway. We've got Frigo yet to go, the overall leader on the general classification, having to do a good time trial. Shouldn't be much problem for Frigo, because he's done well in the Paris-Nice last year when he used the climb of the Col d'Ez to take up the lead of that great race. Well, this is the man here with the yellow jersey on, Dario Frigo. And well, who would have thought this when he was under a 6-month suspension, that he would come back this season. He's only about a dozen days racing under his belt and ride so strongly here in the Tour of Romandie. He's ridden an amazing race when he took off on stage 2 on that particular occasion and went up that climb to take the lead. He timed it to perfection. He defended his position ever since then. He's been supported by the Tacconi Sport team, who really played a wonderful task in either pulling back the brakes, like yesterday it was terrible conditions. They put the lid on things to the Tacconi Sport team, as devil friend himself again, Mr. Didi Denfeld, waves the trident to the departing figure of Frigo. All riders now out on the course. We have 107 riders finished yesterday. We had a couple of non-starters, yes, 5 non-starters in fact it was yesterday, and 5 riders did not finish. Amazing that was, that we only lost 5 riders under conditions when it was so bad that the organisation did not put the riders over the climbs preceding the final climb. Just rode up the final climb of the day. And this is the man there who came through the snowstorm and took the victory. David time 25.40 there, and just 150 metres to go. It might go, he might take over from Miller here as he comes down the finishing straight. Then the crowd getting right behind the ex-world time trial champion coming down here, and 25.40 to beat. It looks like he's going to make this one surely. On the line it is. David has pushed into second spot by 40 seconds. Alex Zuller is back there in the pound seats, or should I say the Swiss franc seats. And well, David Miller was spitting nails when in the World Championship last year he was finally overtaken by Ulrich at the end of it all. And I said on the occasion then that it's nice to be beaten by supreme time trialists, and when he went down to the Olympic road champion Ulrich in the time trial, then David had to be disappointed with the second spot. Well, the same thing's happened here yet again. Another star performer against the watch. Zuller has now taken the lead, but do bear in mind though that with the racing so far that Zuller's had, he's so far ahead of David Miller in terms of racing this year, because David, if you've just switched on coverage of Eurosport, only say the last, this week, or maybe just picked up the back end of some of our coverage of the classics and so on, David had this glandular fever. He'd been training and felt very weak and just didn't feel up to it at all, and so he had tests and they discovered that he had glandular fever, and the thing was just to relax, take it easy, and then come back from that when he felt strong enough, and that's what he's done. He started riding the bike, and so one could almost say it's a training ride to be taking part in this one. But I think for David to be pushed back in the second spot, yes, of course he'd be disappointed, and do bear in mind that there's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, another dozen riders yet to finish. And particularly something like Sergei Honchar yet to finish. But if David finishes in the top 3 places here, then I think he will be mildly satisfied. I don't think he's ever 100% satisfied unless he's got it under his belt. So anyway, he's lying second here, by the way, Aitel Gonzalez. You can see on his screen here, just by some 13 seconds, but that'll be to the time of Zuller, who's now taken the lead on today on this particular stage. Now, this is a man who knows what he's got to do. Well, Zuller isn't going to cause him any great problems because the general classification, Zuller is off the pace there, so he won't take over the leader's jersey. 1 minute and 11 seconds back, Alex Zuller, this morning, and I wouldn't have thought that Frigo is going to lose that sort of time on his way round. Weather conditions still pretty miserable, has been all the way through, and I suggest somehow that when they finish this race they'll look back and say, well, what happened to global warming? We have had in the Tour of Romandie the last 3 years extremely good weather conditions, very nice indeed. But again, I'm repeating some of the things we said in the last 5 days, because I know over the weekend we get some of the riders who, club riders who've been out maybe this morning out racing somewhere, or training, time trialing, road racing, whatever you've been doing, or just out on your club runs, who haven't during the week been able to catch up with our coverage. That some of the stories, if I repeat them on the way through, then just don't get too worried about the repetition. Tony Rominger was telling me that he's part of the organisation now, by the way, Tony. He was telling me that in 1995, in fact, he had to scratch his head and try and find which year it was, 1995, when he won the Tour of Romandie. On that particular occasion, they had to ride through snow like we saw yesterday, and he mentioned yesterday, he said, well, it's an outdoor sport and it's a man's sport. So he certainly yesterday, he was, I won't say smiling ear to ear, but Tony always rode well in the cold weather conditions. He used to suffer with hay fever, by the way, and that was one of the problems that he had in some of the season when it just got into the spring and the sun started to come out and the blossoms were there. He would get hay fever. But when it was wet and there wasn't so much away of pollen about the place, then he could certainly fire on all cylinders. Eventually they found what the problem was and cured it, so he was able to ride when the pollen gets to people. Amazing what happens, isn't it? Strange viruses like David Miller and his glandular fever. I was speaking to one of the riders from the coast team, the Seiko team, that's right, down there the other day at the start of the Tour of Paris-Roubaix, and he was saying exactly the same thing, that he'd been getting conditions which was to do with the pollen, and they've only just found out why he would have good form in January and February and would be off where there wasn't much pollen about the place, and start to this time of the year start to suffer. So a great problem for York. Well, one of the things they've learnt now to deal with it, and that'll probably sort it out, and probably the best thing to do is have a bit of a break and come back later in the season when there won't be much chance of the pollen giving any problems. So yes, I know many of you get it, and gosh, there's been a lot of sneezing going around here, but as a bike rider, that's something with up you cannot put. Right then, so Frigo out on the course, taking it rather gently here. We'll wait to see that into time check with Frigo. You can see what a height they go back up to, by the way, because looking down there at the lake, they're starting quite a bit up in the sky by the Olympic Stadium at 608 metres above sea level, run fairly flat to begin with, and then dropping down into the centre of the town. In fact, it's around about what, 7 kilometres into the race when they flatten out at the bottom of the Quai Dulci, and then they turn and come back again. So the central part is fairly flat, but there is this nasty little grind up the Avenue de la Apre, and then past the Place de la Gare, and then you can hear the Swiss getting right behind the Phonak boys here as well, because they're moving up then towards the finish of this race, which will be at the back out to the Olympic Stadium, coming around the other way into the finish. And certainly the Phonak team have done a remarkable job since this race started, and I've got a suspicion they're going to be knocking on the door of the Tour de France next year for looking for an exclusion. This man Alexander Mus has been up there since the start of this race, and well, on the first day of the race in the time trial he was second, just 1 second behind, and there you can see the rundown now on the situation as it is for the time trial. And nice to see David Miller over his Bête Noire, Mr. Bodrogi, who you may remember at the World Championships was overtaken by Ulrich, and had a bit of a thrash then to try and have a bit of a race over the last couple of kilometres, and that's meant that he had a few problems at the end of it all, David, because it pulled out that bit of extra effort from Ulrich, and Ulrich got the gold medal. Not saying he wasn't going to get it, but he had something to aim for. Well, Sergei Hunchal here, not, I think, doing what he would expect to do. One would have thought he could have been up there in the top half dozen, but not so good. 26.13 then, losing over 1 minute and 13 seconds on Zuller, and probably dropping a bit down the general classification too as well. Well, I think, by the way, he looks like he's losing a bit of weight now. Perhaps he's losing some of the power with it. We go back out to Cadel Evans, and we'll see what he's going to do. But certainly, Hunchar is much more an all-round bicycle rider now. We've seen him up there each day. One time, he had quite big, thick thighs and a chunky sort of build, which meant on a time trial of an undulating nature and a bit over a longer course, he was a great powerful man. He used to get forward over the top of the saddle and push these enormous gears, great big windmill job. And so Hunchar had that supreme ability to shove a big gear. And I've got a suspicion that the Fasabotolo team have slimmed him down a bit, because Ferretti wants, I think, an all-round athlete with the team, and I'd rather think that Gonchar's probably lost a bit of weight, which allowed him to climb a lot better and contribute to the team overall. Mazzoloni, well, here's another rider who did an extremely good job for his teammate Frigo. That was that attack that went on the stage too, when he blunted the opposition, and his teammate went up there too as well. They did a wonderful 1-2 job to put the yellow jersey on the shoulders of Frigo. So what, some 7 spots, 7 seconds back, so he's not going to be up there top. So going back down to Frigo, and a very, very nice, smart, looks like a stealth fighter, doesn't it, that black bike he's got there. And interesting, some of the riders are riding black aluminium bikes, and it isn't paint on. They just have a way in which they can electrolyte cover the aluminium with the black finish, and it's done just to save weight. Yes, even to some extent on mountain climbing bikes, and even on time trial bikes, often not even going to put down the the paint because it might add to the weight. Well, it's David Miller's second spot under pressure here. 25.40 to beat. He's got very close indeed. Oh, no. He's just dropped off the pace then. That was heart-stopping moment for David, who's still with a chance then of being up on the podium. Miller, who set that early pace in the race then, at 25.40.16, being into second spot by Zuller, this man third. Back out with Frigo, who's come off the top of the town down in towards the flat part alongside the lake here, and will be shortly turning to go back up again, up in towards the finish area, where the spectators pleased at the moment that the rider in the lead on the classification for the time trial, Alex Zuller, who has won something like 24, 25, around about that number of time trial victories in his career. Alex Zuller started racing way back in 1991 and spent so much time with the Onse team, and was not only up there winning time trial victories but also world championships too. And these wet conditions, despite the fact that Zuller had got these sort of bottle glasses, you may remember if you were watching our coverage of the Tour de France when it started in St. Hertogenbosch in Holland, on that occasion when it chucked it down with rain, Alex got one of his many prologue time trial victories on winning on that particular day under very squashy, squelchy and miserable conditions too. So he's in the lead at the moment, as riders going down here, the lake on the right, the expensive hotels on the left. So I say if you come out here, certainly bring your gold card with you. It costs a few bob in here in Lausanne. Lausanne now has lost one of its big important office occupiers, because the UCI moved from Lausanne, where they used to be, to a place we didn't show you yesterday, the race going through Aigle, A-I-G-L-E. I think that's Cadel Evans back down there. Yes, we are back down with Cadel Evans. And in the town of Aigle, which is further round the Lac Le Mans, you keep going. If you've looked on your maps and you've seen where Lausanne is, keep going round to the right-hand side of what looks like a boomerang, the lake. At Aigle, where there's a beautiful castle, by the way. Shame we couldn't show it all for you on the coverage yesterday. That's where the UCI have got their headquarters now, and they've purpose-built a track, rather like the way in which the British Cycling Federation, I think they call themselves British Cycling now, for some obscure reason. British Cycling have got their headquarters in Manchester, based in a track, and of course they can use the track for training and also for the headquarters. Well, the UCI have done the same thing there. Interesting enough, the UCI have got 40 people working for them. That's the world governing body, and I think the BCF have got the same. So anyway, one is the world governing body, one is the national body. But enough of that. I've seen in cycling there's a lot of ranting and raving going on about where's the money going, why can't we help some of the Premier calendar with some of the cash that goes in the membership funds. But that's another argument for the press to go about. Anyway, the UCI moved from Lausanne now to Aigle. They've got Frederic Magnier, who's been the world Derny champion over the years. He's now in there looking after the interests of the track side. They're having training there. They're bringing young riders from all over the world to track train there, and they've got a fully fledged gymnasium. They've got some residential accommodation too as well, and they've had help from the local council to the building of it. So they've moved out from here, the UCI, just further around the lake, and through the way we went splashing yesterday. Didn't have a chance, unfortunately, to show you their fine building on the pictures because everything had gone kaput. Right, back then with Cadel Evans. And yesterday, well, certainly did a great ride considering the conditions, because coming from sunny Australia as he does, although he has been based up in northern Italy a lot, he did a great ride. Alexander Moose coming through for the Phonak team, and they are making good progress at the moment. They are only 22nd on the rankings in the world, but it's the they used to have a team here sponsored by the post office, the Post Suisse. They had a team, a modest team, right down at the bottom of the second division. It was taken over here by Phonak, and you see BMC on the shoulders. That's the manufacturer of the bicycle, so it's a Swiss team. Phonak being based in Switzerland, they manufacture hearing aids. And now we're going back out to André Noé, for the Mapei team. A man who's he's been one of those workhorses with the Mapei team, but he has taken over the lead in the pink jersey in the Tour of Italy, which of course now they'll all be focusing on, which starts next Saturday on the 11th of May. Will he get selected? Because Mapei's got a very strong team indeed, but he's certainly shown in this race that he's coming into jolly good form indeed. Noe on his way up then, and well, no, he's 40 seconds down. He's not at the moment going to I think, challenge the judges at the line unless he can get something a bit quicker out of the barrel. And interesting then what will happen, the gap between himself and this young man here, Cadel Evans. A great, undoubtedly, we're going back out to Frigo at the front, and we're back again in a minute, I suppose, to Cadel Evans. But there was some talk about 5 years ago. There's the intermediate time you can see on the screen at the moment, and the provisional classification, what it's done to it. Evans still lying in 4th spot, so he's not having the best of a time trial right now. Mazzoloni and Noe, you can see there on your screen right now. So the situation isn't changing dramatically at this particular time. But Frigo looks like, as he's now chucked his crash hat off, is certainly going to defend that jersey in fine style. Now going back out then with Cadel Evans, I was talking to Biggles of the Australian Broadcasting Company, ABC, and whoops, steady on Cadel, and he was saying that when there was a talk in the Tour de France, I'm going back about 4 years ago now, there was talk about going back to national teams, not running them as we have been doing for many years now, with the teams being from sponsored teams, going back to national teams. It was a press talk, by the way. The Tour de France didn't actually say anything themselves officially, but there was talk about going back to national teams. And I said to the Australian team, to Biggle, I said, well, they've got everything, and what they didn't have in those days was a good mountain goat. And he said, oh yes, he said, we've now got Cadel Evans, because if he comes to be a road rider rather than a mountain biker, then Cadel could certainly surprise a few people. How right Biggles was too, because there Cadel was still riding as a mountain bike rider. Now he's riding on thin tyres and has been climbing extremely well indeed. So if there was an Australian national team in the Tour de France, then Cadel could have filled that slot for mountain climbers. Gosh, they've got a lot of other riders that can do anything else too, haven't they? You look at the depth of the talent in Australia, absolutely phenomenal. But it's the Italians that are dominating racing at the moment. They've got 6 teams in the Tour of France, against 5 from France itself, the host nation. And next week we're going to see loads of Italian teams vying for the attention of the spectators along the route as a tifosi turnout. And what will happen to this man? How will he do? He's been previously there in the pink jersey, leader of the Tour of Italy. Can he this year get round safe and sound and not get off the race, missing out at the final accolades in the finish? We'll have to wait and see what Frigo does. Last year's winner, can he get it twice on the trot? Not many riders can win it twice in succession. Stephen Roche did it in 1963 and 1964, and Stephen went on to win the Tour of Romandie in 1987. So in fact, Stephen was the man who won it 3 times, 83, 84, and again in 87. And so Stephen Roche, the only man ever to win this race 3 times. Frigo looks like he's going to do it 2 on the trot, the way he's going round here, because I can see he's like going second at the moment at the split times here, only about 4 seconds down, so that's good enough to keep him up there in the leader's jersey. He keeps it up at the moment. Gosh, he's murdering himself. Look at this. Frigo in 2nd spot, David Miller 3rd. And if it stays on like that, now then, Evans has moved a bit ahead. A little split timing before had shown that he was back in 4th spot. That must have been, and here he comes now. Well, Evans has got David Miller in his sights here, and 25:40 is David Miller's time, and Cadel is doing a great ride here, because if he gets anywhere near David Miller, that certainly may well put him up in the top 3 places at the end of the general classification when Frigo has finished. phenomenal ride by the Aussie. He's done everything. He's climbed the mountains, he's rolled with the big hitters, he's been up the mountain, he's now in the time trial, coming quite good here then. He's just behind Bodrogi. In fact, he's got over Bodrogi. Cadel Evans, 25.45. That's an extremely good ride indeed then for Cadel. And this young man undoubtedly is going to be one of the revelations of this season. If he keeps this lot up, he's going to frighten a few more people in more events yet to come. So back out with Frigo, and this morning then Evans starting out on the general classification in 4th spot. That means that there are some, 2, 4, 6, 8 minutes yet we have to wait, or thereabouts, for Frigo to come through into the finish. And yet to finish will be Andre Noe and Fernandez Perez. Interesting then that with Cadel Evans, because we're seeing the provisional position up there, that certainly it looked as if Evans might move up into onto the podium position, not just for this here, but certainly he won't get on the podium for the time trial, but for the overall classification. That 25.45 could be jolly useful, because he will start out this morning only 8 seconds, not this chap Frigo, but Evans start out 8 seconds behind Noe on the general classification, and 9 seconds behind Perez. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens to Noe, as to whether Evans has pipped him at the post, and maybe Perez. If Cadel gets a second spot, as it looked a bit further back on the intermediate time check, that will be a phenomenal performance, and all those people back in Australia will certainly be elated with that one. Do bear in mind, though, sort of middle of the night as far as they're concerned. They'll wake up at breakfast time to hear the good news from the Tour of Romandie. Back then with Frigo. No, now this is the Evans' time, 25.45. He's now gone 5 seconds outside it, and even further falling back. So yes, Noe this morning then, who was in 3rd spot, is going to lose out to Evans. Evans 25.45. Yes, he's gone. That's it. Noe's dropped back, and he hasn't had a good time trial at all here, Andre Noe. But then he rides the same team, Mappy. I'm sure he's going to be the first man to congratulate Cadel Evans, because you can see that he's lost a lot of time on Cadel. So at the moment then, Evans has leapfrogged over Noe. The next man to come will be the Camirada Perez, a good little mountain climber, and if he keeps something towards the back end, then perhaps Perez might frighten a few people. But here we are back again out with Frigo, and that I think is Perez down. Yes, it is. Well, he wasn't doing too well at the halfway point, but that was right down. The halfway point was as they came along the quayside and turned and came back again in towards the finishing up towards his final climb. So the halfway point on the flat, so it means that probably Perez, as you can see here, what little bit of a climb we've got, might well be able to do something. But I don't think so. 1 kilometre to go then for Frigo. Best time, that of Alex Zuller. He was second at the halfway check. Zuller, 24.59. Just outside the 25-minute mark. Well, with that less than a kilometre to go, a quick recheck, I don't think there's any way that Frigo is going to lose his yellow jersey, but he's certainly getting close to Zuller's time. And do bear in mind, David Miller there in 2nd spot at the moment, 25 minutes and 40 seconds. Here comes Perez, and no, he's not going to do it. It certainly, that means he's fading, and that means that Cadel Evans has gone 2nd. Absolutely tremendous. Well, I'm not going to chat to my friends. I've got to make a phone call when I get back to Britain for the Tour Down Under, have a word with one of the people, that John Rowley, who produces the television coverage out there. So I think I'll try and phone him and get him out of bed and just tell him that his man Cadel has looked like he's got a 2nd spot, because certainly according to my calculation on the back of an envelope, my gosh, there's enough of them all over the place, bits of paper flying everywhere. Cadel looks like he's gone 2nd overall in general classification to this man here, on your screen then Frigo, who's still hovering and trying to win the time trial too as well. What a ride he's done. I'm sure he's going to be the first man, though, to look back and thank his teammates. He didn't start the opening prologue time trial too well on that particular day. He was in 9th spot, some 6 seconds down, just ahead of Britain's David Miller, who finished 10th on the opening prologue time trial. The short, sharp burst of a banjo that was, but now he comes through here. Is he going to get ahead of David Miller's time then? 25.06. It looks conceivable as he's now getting towards 100 metres to go. It's a nasty little drag up here. David will be holding his breath, but certainly David's going to be on the podium in this time trial. He's going to finish either second or third. What's it going to be? And no, he's dropped back to third as David, but Frigo finishing there 25.23 has now convinced everybody that he's back with a bang. He's got the yellow jersey and he's done the right thing. He's certainly kept his eye on the ball all the way round at this 18-kilometre course, and he finished in second spot just behind Alex Zuller. Zuller's time 24.59, so in fact there it is for you, confirmed on the screen, and Frigo just back behind him, some 24. Then Miller at 40 seconds, and so on. Gonzalez. Look at Evans there in 5th spot, ahead of Bodrogi. Back in 6th, another great time trial. Nice little ride by Levi Leipheimer, by the way. He had a very bad start to this race, but he's crept up. He was there yesterday, and now he's done a nice little time trial too. So Rabobank, I think, will be very happy the way he's coming on form, because he had a pretty grotty start this season, did Levi, but he looks like he's beginning to get into the swing of things now, and so they'll be, I think, happy with the last couple of days' activity from the Australian, with the way he's performed, sorry, the American, with the way he's performed in these last few days then. So that's it then, Frigo on the overall classification of this one. You can just see how he was on the top three. That's not the general classification, by the way, that's just the looking at the situation. In fact, now we're on the overall classification. In fact, yes, it is. Zuller has jumped up in the second spot, and that has surprised me, but certainly Zuller's back with a bang, but Frigo has run out victor. Not only has he taken the yellow jersey today, he's frightened a few moves, some very forceful riding throughout the race. Alex Zuller, what a revelation in the race, and the way in which he won this time trial and moved up the general classification to finish in second spot in this, the 2002 Tour of Romandie. He is also back with a bang. He had a few problems. He switched teams. He went from the Once team. He went over then to Benesto. He's now come to Team Coast. He rode with him last year. He only got one victory last year, stage in the Paris-Nice, but he's just got this stage here, and undoubtedly I think if he's going to ride the Tour of Italy, we could see him up there. Do bear in mind, he's been twice victor of the Tour of Spain. He's been up in the podium position on the top 3 in the Tour de France, but not done anything spectacular in the Tour of Italy, because he's been concentrating on the Tour de France and then the Tour of Spain. So this time, with the team not being in the Tour de France, the Coast boys might get behind Zuller, and he could surprise quite a number of people in that race this year. Another dark horse, another man who might come up and surprise those we've been talking about as likely contenders for that pink jersey. Now this man too, again, well, he's started the season so strongly. We've watched him on coverage on Eurosport, and now you can see that here in the Tour of Romandie that he's ridden a very, very crafty race all the way through, very calculating race. He knew when he had to go on that stage 2, when he took off in those final 5 kilometres to take the lead. His team helped him defend it all the way through after that, and with a time trial that was really out of the top draw, Frigo taking the victory in the Tour of Romandie. A race which dates back to 1947, and now the Italians get it yet again. He got it last year, Salvadelli got it the year before that. The Italians certainly are dominating the racing this year. What will they do in the Tour of Italy? Well, the crowd have been turning out in amazing numbers considering the awful conditions that we've had in the Tour of Romandie. The Tifosi will be there next year, but we're starting in up in Holland of all places for the Tour of Italy. Perhaps you might nip in your motor cars across to see it at Groningen. It works its way across the nations up there, which were the founding nations in the European Union. We're going to relive what happened today for your screens, but whatever happens, do join us next Saturday. I'm David Duffield. I'll be there. I hope you'll be. Until then, it's time to say bye-bye.